What is up, Janksters? It's your boy Graham, also known as HamHawks42 on the internet, and today I want to look at a card that has been causing quite the stir on social media, and that is Displacer Kitten. Displacer Kitten is a 2/2 cat beast that's pretty darn adorable, if I may say, for 3 and a blue, and it has an ability called Avoidance. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, exile up to one target non-land permanent you control, then return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control. So this ability is very powerful. Blinking actually is just a really powerful effect. If you can touch anything that has a good enter the battlefield ability with this, you can get some crazy combos going, and we're going to walk through a couple of those today. One that's kind of one of the most obvious ones, oddly enough, or at least one that I've seen some people mention on social media that I'd be remiss if I didn't mention, is with Eternal Witness. Eternal Witness is a card that says when it enters, when it comes into play is the old wording, when it enters the battlefield, you may return target card from your graveyard to your hand. So you cast a spell, you blink the Eternal Witness returns a spell from your graveyard to your hand, you then cast that spell again. Rinse, repeat, you can do some crazy things. With Dark Ritual, for example, that can produce infinite mana. So if you're in those colors, all of a sudden, you know, that produces infinite black mana. It's pretty good. That's a pretty good effect. You can do a lot of stuff with that. Other examples are if you were to have, say, an Agent of Treachery on board, it turns every single spell you cast into the Agent of Treachery enter the battlefield trigger. So I can cast Opt and steal any permanent you control. Yep, that's pretty darn mean. And at the end step, if I control 3 or more permanents I don't own, I draw 3 cards. That's a thing. So Agent of Treachery is an incredibly powerful card. I'm personally not a fan of it because it produces some really unfun play patterns, and Displacer Kitten can take advantage of it to pretty great effect. Other good examples are Rune-Scarred Demon. This tacks on a demonic tutor to any spell you cast. Again, opt and then go look into your library for any card you want and just put it in your hand. It also untaps your Rune-Scarred Demon, which could be relevant if you're attacking with it in combat. So just throwing that out there. Yeah, just Displacer Kitten is an incredibly powerful card, and there's also a number. These are believe it or not, these examples that I'm going through so far are some of the more fair versions of play patterns you can create with Displacer Kitten. One that I think is incredibly powerful that is not hard to pull off is just about anything involving Peregrine Drake. If you're not familiar with Peregrine Drake, it is a 2/3 Drake for 4 and a blue with flying that says when Peregrine Drake enters the battlefield, untap up to 5 lands. So what you do is you cast a spell, you blink your Peregrine Drake, you untap all your lands that you just cast, and you can even tap 5 lands, spend 1 mana on, again, like an Opt or something like that. Untap everything, Peregrine Drake enters the battlefield again, and just crazy things happen. You can do some phenomenal stuff with this. Again, if you have like an Eternal Witness or some way to pull stuff out of your graveyard, you can take advantage of that. There's also an older mechanic that becomes just completely and totally busted with Peregrine Drake and Displacer Kitten, and that is Buyback. If you're not familiar with Buyback, it is an ability that adds an additional cost to a spell, and if you pay that additional cost, kind of like Kicker, it returns to the spell to your hand. So instead of going to your graveyard, it goes back to your hand. I pulled up Searing Touch as an example of one of these spells with Buyback. Now, this was from Tempest. This is an uncommon from Tempest. It costs 1 red at instant speed with buyback of 4. So if you want it back in your hand, you have to spend 5 mana, which is a lot for this effect. It says it deals 1 damage to any target. So the target creature or player is the old school wording, but it can touch planeswalkers. So it's 1 damage to anything, but it costs you 5 if you want to have the option to recast it. Well, you combine that with Displacer Kitten and Peregrine Drake, all of a sudden you tap 5 mana, cast Searing Touch with its buyback, deal 1 damage to your opponent, Peregrine Drake blinks, when it comes back in, you untap all 5 mana. Hey, Searing Touch is just sitting in my hand. Let's do that again, and again, and again, and again. And that is infinite damage to everyone and everything on the board. And that's a 3-card combo. And that is not hard to pull off. And that is just the tip of the iceberg. Again, these kinds of effects are easy to pull off. Enter the battlefield triggers have become very, very powerful over the years. And a lot of cards in the past were not designed to function alongside some of these stuff. Like, so for this combo, for example, Peregrine Drake is an older card as well. The particular one I have pulled up is a reprint from Battle Bond, but I believe it was an older card. I believe it was originally printed in the Urza Saga. Urza's Destiny, I believe. I could be wrong on that. But it's from the Urza Saga, and then Searing Touch was originally from Tempest. I mean, these are some older cards. But they happen to have the synergy alongside Displacer Kitten. So at the end of the day, there are some people on social media calling for Displacer Kitten to be banned on power level reasons. I personally think power level bans in Commander are a bit of a, I don't know, it seems extreme. If it causes problems in Legacy or Vintage or anything like that, or, you know, sure, but I don't see Displacer Kitten causing trouble in those formats because at the end of the day, it's a 4-drop and it's just a 2/2. So it gets smashed by pretty much any removal out there that's run in those formats, with the exception of Fatal Push. It does get around that, but anyway, it does not survive just about any kind of removal. And the setup that we're talking about requires, you know, a 4-drop, a 5-drop, and then a specific one of, so, or a specific one cost. You know, I don't imagine it causing problems in those older formats, but having any 3-card infinite combo in Commander can prove problematic. Now, the game of Magic has millions of 3-card combos, many of which have never been discovered, that can go infinite and win you the game. We've seen them. We've all been there in Commander. We've seen games end by them. It happens. And we oftentimes, as Commander players, choose to not include them in our decks because of how powerful they are. I know I have a couple of copies of Blasting Station that I did have infinite combos built around, and I took them out of my decks because it wasn't a fun play experience for my pod. Now, Displacer Kitten lends itself to those kinds of combos, but you as the player do not need to play those kinds of combos. Be aware of your play group, be aware of their power level, and act accordingly. Know that if Displacer Kitten is in your deck, if you have cards like Peregrine Drake, like Agent of Treachery, or like Rune-Scarred Demon, you are setting yourself up for an incredibly powerful play experience. Don't take this into pods that are not ready for that. Be aware of that. So basically all I'm saying is, all this powerful cuteness, just use it appropriately and use it carefully is what I would recommend. But the card is very powerful, downright sweet, if I may say so. Yeah, and I think calling for a ban is a little extreme. I think that's going a little too far, in my opinion. But anyway, thank you so much for checking out the video, and thank you for making it to the end. I appreciate it very, very much. If you enjoyed this, please like and subscribe. It makes a huge difference to the channel, and I will catch you on the next one.